Today we're going to talk about driver coaching yourself. Hello, this is Enzo. Welcome to episode 15 of series 2 of the Race Driver Coach Show, and it's coming to you in a bit of a different way. I'm in the car, and it's coming from the car just for the simple reason that I haven't been back to the office in 3 weeks or so I haven't been able to record the normal way with the normal background and the normal sound equipment. So I've got to apologize first of all for using this as the microphone and the iPhone as the camera whilst on the go, which is a bit dark, I think. But what can you do when you're on the move? You've just got to stick with this. So yeah, it's not going to be as finished, it's not going to be as polished, it's not going to be as nice to all your podcast listeners as say, this sounds awful. But you know, I've got to keep the show going. The show's on the road, but I've got to keep it going. And the question that stood out to me this week was from Seb. Made up name. I just thought I'd change the name. But they said, or they asked me this. I've noticed a lot of drivers using driver coaches now. I know I need one, but the problem is I can't afford one. How can I get around this problem and not lose too much ground on the other drivers? Yeah, I agree. There's driver coaches everywhere. Fitness coaches, there's these masseuses, there's chefs. I've seen drivers now with such big entourages, photographers, managers, there's like 5 people around them. And when you are in a situation where you're spending your last dime on racing itself, because it's expensive, right? You know that. The last thing you can afford is more people, more expenses to travel, you know, to pay for their, not just their services, but a coach can charge you what, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand or whatever they charge you. And then you've got all their expenses on top of that. It's expensive. And if you're only paying 100 grand for the championship itself, you've got to ask yourself, do I really need a coach? Can I really afford this? So in this video, I just want to give you a few tips and a few hints of pretty much what I did when I was driving, and other people, if they can't afford the coach, even though they're missing out on how a good coach can help you shortcut your way to success and help you save time, so in the end it saves money. But if you just haven't got the cash, you haven't got the cash to pay out now, there's a few ways around this. First, see if one will sponsor you. See if one will give you the services and watch you on track and give you some general tips on the go, and you don't pay them much. You just, maybe they share a room with you when you're out there and you pay for their fuel to get to the circuits if you're not flying away. Maybe as a coach that'll do that. It won't be a very good one, but it'll be someone who's keen and someone who's maybe a racer at the moment, and they can do that. So I'd try that thought process first. Secondly, distant coaching. You can get away with not having a coach there. Okay, it won't be as powerful, it won't be as quick, it won't be as effective, but if you were to have a phone call or a face-to-face discussion or a simulator session with a coach before you go to the race weekend or a test, and you try and put out as many fires as you can then, and you try and prep as much as you can, and then you call them throughout the weekend instead of them being there physically, you can save a lot of money. And then obviously you meet them on the Wednesday after the race weekend or the test, and you do a bit of a debrief. You get the race team to phone up to contribute to the debrief, and that's quite a good way of keeping on top of yourself. That's quite a good way of having a coach there with you, but not really with you. So you prep with them before you go, you call them throughout the weekend, and you debrief with them when you see them the next time after. And that will save a lot on their wage and their expenses. So you can use Skype and all sorts. So distant coaching is another one. But if you can't even afford that, or you're not sure about that, or you can't find one that's any good, then how about coaching yourself? This is something that a lot of drivers do. You coaching yourself means one thing: you've got to be very, very conscious of your strengths and weaknesses. You've got to be very disciplined on every single time you get out the session, out the car. that you're coaching yourself, you're debriefing yourself effectively, you're scoring yourself, and you're setting up the next session in a way that's goal orientated and monitorable, and you can progress throughout the weekend. So that's just an overview, but really what I'm trying to say here, just to give you a bit more of a, if I was to go now and I couldn't have a coach and I was going to a race circuit, I'd be right, this is Monday now of the race week. What's the main goal? What is the main goal of the weekend that's on its way now? And that can start with, I want to be in the top 5. Brilliant. Okay, you want to be in the top 5. First thing with a goal is to make sure it's a stretch goal. Make sure that if you have only just broken in to the top 10, that to stretch yourself a little bit further, not massively further, not I'm going to win the next race and make it unrealistic and put too much expectation on yourself, but more like, okay, how can I turn the notch up just one more? How can I get into the top 5 from the top 10? That's the goal. Then you reverse engineer that. You think, all right, for me to be able to do that, this is an example, the process goal for the coming weekend will be, I need to qualify better. Because I'm all right in the races, but it's just qualifying is not great, so I'm starting in 15th, making it hard for myself. So maybe I should focus all my attention on qualifying better. Now you've got a goal. This is all set out on Monday, right? Before the race weekend, or even before that, a week before. All I care about now in this coming race weekend is to qualify better, to get more out of myself. Right, how can I do that? I can prep. I can watch every single YouTube video, onboard video of that circuit of my particular car, if possible, and write down all the notes I can on how to do a quick lap. I can talk to the race school people, that the instructors at the race school there. I can talk to other drivers who are good around that circuit, how to do a quick lap. What's the most important corners to execute? So you're getting all the data and all the information, speak to the team, do some simulator prep, whatever it is, to make sure that your one lap performance, or however long the tyres last for, your one lap performance and execution of that is effective. And you can execute. So that's what you spend the whole week doing. You're just in qualifying mode. You don't worry about anything else, about the racecraft as much. You do a little bit, but not as much. But you've got that goal, so you set it up. That's all you care about. So what you're going to do, you're going to approach free practice. When you do the free practice sessions, you're going to approach them and ask the engineer to help you, or the mechanic, or whoever's with you, to approach it like it's a quali session. You're going to use as many new tyres as you can afford. You're going to get out there, warm up quickly, and execute on doing the perfect lap. So you're training the qualifying muscle of the brain early on. It's not like I'm going to go out there, I'm going to take my time, I'm going to learn the circuit, I'm going to get myself feeling comfortable, and then all of a sudden it's qualifying, I've got to perform. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be learning things when you get to qualifying. You want to have it all done, so you know exactly what's going to happen. You've tried everything you can in free practice. So really structure free practice. How am I going to approach it? What's most important to me? Which corners are the ones I must get right, because they're the ones that really contribute to the lap time? There'll be 3 or 4 you have to really concentrate on. So you're going to use that free practice to make sure you get your head around them corners and execute perfectly on them corners. Done. By free practice 2, you're already ready and pretty much qualifying in your head. So you set it all up. You go in there with that mentality. Mentality is another one. How have I got to think? How have I got to be as a person in order to be this qualifying driver? I've got to have less thought. I've got to have less thought of consequence. I've got to be prepared just to go. And believe me, if you're doing this from Friday, by the time Saturday comes, or whenever qualifying comes, you've already done it 4 or 5 times. You're there. So that's the kind of approach. Now, self-coaching, this is where you have to be really self-aware and know how to score yourself. Now, I've put something on the internet, on our website, racedrivercoach.com/downloads. So if you go to this, you go to my normal website, I'll put the link at the bottom of the underneath this video. /downloads, and I've put there 2 downloads, and you can see it. This is a self-coaching debrief, self-scoring sheet where you can finish a session and score yourself in the vital areas that contribute to your performance. So if you have a look there, I'm just going by memory now because I can't stick it up and hold you, but I put it there for you to download. You will go to the session with a goal. The goal is to be in quali mode. The goal is to execute on these corners. The goal is, maybe in qualifying you can't take the pressure mentally, so the goal is to create a mindset throughout the session of free practice to allow myself to drive without pressure, to allow myself to focus on the next corner, whatever your goal is, right, to get yourself at the best in qualifying. That's before you go in. However, what a coach will do is, after you get out the car, you'll have a debrief session with him or her. You'll have one with your engineer and everyone like that, but then you'll have a separate one on pure performance only. This is what I want you to do on your own. That score sheet you can download from the racedrivercoach.com/downloads. You'll see it there, the self-scoring sheet. It will be rate your driving out of 10. So it's really broad, right? Just in general, rated out of 10 in free practice. Now rate your mental performance out of 10 in free practice. And you rate that out there of 10 or whatever it is, with a little note underneath saying how you can improve it. So if your driving was 5 out of 10 and your mental performance was 2 out of 10, you write down why. Why is it so low? Because I tell you what, that's what I'm going to focus on. That becomes your goal for free practice 2. And you've got all these, I think I've done 10 different areas, 10 separate areas that you're going to score yourself on after you get out of free practice 1. All right, and free practice, no, it's 2 of each, sorry. But there's 10 areas in total. You'll see it when you download it. And then there'll be one for free practice 2, a debrief form where you score yourself, and for qualifying and for each race. This allows you to monitor your performance and also monitor your progress. And this is a great way of self-coaching yourself. So you're never, ever go into a race weekend, never go into a session even, a test session, without having a clear goal, without knowing what you've got to do, and without scoring yourself afterwards. Because when you score yourself, it sets you up for the next test session, the next race, the next weekend. This is how you self-score. This is how you self-coach yourself. Drivers are not doing this. I'm always saying that, oh no, drivers are not doing this, but they're not. They're going into the session, they're getting a little debrief from their engineer, and they get the engineer goals, but really, we're talking about the human being mostly here. How are you performing? Because that's what a coach looks for. Yes, they talk about brake shapes and all this, but a real performance coach, which there's not actually many performance coaches out there, but a true performance coach is all about the blood, sweat and tissue, you. They just want you to perform at your best. If you haven't got the skills yet, that's fine. Together we'll make the skills better and we'll learn. But really, how are you performing on demand? Are you showing up, or are you the problem here? You've got the skills, but you can't do them on demand. If you self-score, if you score yourself each time you get out of that car, and you say, yeah, I wasn't really that good then, and you start to see a pattern. You start to see that when you start to overdrive, it's because you're putting pressure on yourself. You're putting consequence in the mind. You're worrying about what other people think. You're starting to get distracted and allowing yourself to think about things that are not helping you instead of thinking of the next corner. So you can start to self-coach yourself and keep you in line and make sure that you progress. Okay, so I hope this answers the question. It's quite hard when I'm driving and stuff to give you a full answer. But really, first of all, see if you can get a coach to help you. Secondly, see if distant coaching helps you out. And thirdly, if you have to coach yourself, go to /downloads, download some of these documents, edit them, change them to something that will help you. Because I've given you just a very basic outline of how to improve yourself on your own when you're in the heat of the battle. So you can change and add that to however you want and score different parts, score how your relationship is with the engineer after it, and you can have just a debrief on your own. This way, you give yourself 10 minutes after each session and you can see, in retrospect, what was really happening. Was it me that was holding myself back because I was thinking silly things and putting myself off? Or was it my driving? Was it literally, I'm not sure how to take that corner? You'll have the answers very quickly if you work with you, your feedback and your engineer, and you'll keep moving forwards. You can be your self-coach. It's obviously nowhere near as powerful as having somebody over your shoulder who's reading between the lines, who knows all the tricks of the trade and knows you very well and can coach you, but it's a good second best. If you can't afford a coach, coach yourself.